Yeah.
So I probably won't introduce every single speaker, but I'll introduce Erik because he's awesome. This is Erik. What do you do, Erik?
I do all the things.
Erik does all the security things for which part of?
For?
The 4-letter.
For NASA?
Which part of NASA?
Which part?
Where do you work in NASA?
At Goddard Space Flight Center.
So Erik works at Goddard Space Flight Center for NASA, and he's going to tell you about privilege escalation. One quick thing I wanted to say, we do have a legit Wi-Fi up, and it's called Dormant Cyber Pathogens. Be kind, don't pop each other's stuff. Don't pop my phone. It's not cool, it's not funny, it's not a joke. So do we get to learn about how to hack a space shuttle? Erik, how do we hack a flight?
That will not be covered in this topic. That's an advanced topic that I give at DEF CON.
Yeah, we need to fly a space shuttle.
Good. So the first problem with that is you actually have to get to a space shuttle that's flight ready.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, how much did they get the one in Dulles? Like hop it and take it for a joyride?
Probably could, but the ISS is another story. All right. Good morning. We get started here. We can talk about, I'm Erik Burgess. We're going to talk about managing privileges in the enterprise environment. Kind of a long title. It's more about protecting users from their... So, who am I? I'm a guy. I've done a lot of things. I've been around the industry about 20 years. Security for the past 10 or 12. I've worked in all sectors. I've done almost all roles in the... So I think I've seen enough. All right, so why this talk? There's a lot of basics in this talk, but I have a lot of conversations with people, and they're always talking about, all my users have admin rights on their machines. We don't want to take them away. It's a pain. I've seen this a lot in all areas of the industry. So we have compliancy that we have to follow. So we started looking at ways to manage this. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what we did. So I hope that it helps some of you guys. So first off, least privileges, defined by NIST as, the least amount of privilege that a user needs to do their actual job. As mentioned before, I do work at NASA. We do have a lot of engineers that are doing high-end hardware stuff, and they need elevated privileges. But on the flip side, we have a lot of secretaries and administrative people, and they don't, but somehow thought they did. So, as we found out, most people with elevated privileges are just operating as administrator. It's the way XP taught us to do it. Vista started getting away from. They're making great strides, but we're still not where we need to be. And what about power user? It's worth absolutely nothing. It gives you no extra privileges. Did a little bit on XP, but nothing. So I'm going to blame Microsoft for the state we're in. You'll probably get tired of me saying least privileges. I know Jules did. All right. So users with least or elevated privileges. What's the ramifications? From things that I've seen, virus, malware, they break things, they delete files they shouldn't. They just install whatever they want from undesirable locations off. And this creates a lot of work for the admins, extra work, which leads to higher costs, which makes management cranky. One note, I read an article last year from Norse Corporation. They said that what is it? About 97% of critical Microsoft vulnerabilities could be prevented if users do not have admin rights. I don't know how true that is, but that was the only source I found. So, how do you start this process? It is daunting. There's a lot of corporate culture that needs to be changed. So, the first thing you probably want to do is get management buy-in. Because if they're not supporting you, you're not getting very far with this. Identify your trouble users and/or applications. We did this through surveys, testing. We looked at our ticket systems, found out what we needed there. And then we implemented a workflow. So we actually have a web-based system that when you need access to a new resource, the user logs in. They say, we need access to this resource. And it's auto-provisioned through Active Directory and tracked and managed. So we made our own workflow in there for elevated privileges. User says they need elevated privileges. There's a few things they need to fill out, which I think I've got a slide on later. They submit it. Their supervisor has to approve it. Their IT manager has to approve it. And my group has to approve it. And in that, we included rules and responsibilities. I suggest you probably do the same. Things like, if you just install software because you have admin rights and you want to, we're going to take it away from you. So the next thing we did was a pilot test, and we ran it in audit mode on a bunch of other users. And the first phase of implementation, the low-hanging fruit, the secretaries, the tech writers, the standard desktop users. And through our previous inquiries, the users we identified with special needs, we had them complete the workflow. We got that into place. We turned audit mode on for them. And then we started removing EP from the unapproved users. And some of them noticed right away. And elevated privileges. I'm sorry. EP stands for elevated privileges. I like to shorten it. And quick note, I found when removing elevated privileges from people, taking them out of the admin group, if you can do it remotely instead of going to their desk, you're going to be yeah. So there were a lot of challenges to this. So a lot of users believe that their corporate machine is their personal machine. How dare IT come in and touch my machine? Sorry, it's not your machine. It's mine. They're often too busy. Oh, yeah. From us. IT's in the hallway. I got a meeting to go to. So I talked about the workflow a little bit. Some of them that actually got approved told all their coworkers, this is what I submitted. So all their coworkers submitted that. And you look on their machine and they don't even have that application installed. Some users just don't abide by rules and regulations because that's the way it is. They've been there forever. Rules don't apply to them. Some of them get vindictive when you do that. Your ticket count goes up very quickly. And it's just a never-ending. But in the end, you're not getting away. Okay, so solutions for managing this. This has been a multi-year process. We looked at a lot of things. There are some third-party commercial software that does this. They are terribly expensive. As I work for a 4-letter agency, there is no money because we do not support the war.
There's no money if you do either.
That's good to know. Here I thought everything was being funneled to DoD. We looked at just granting EP for 24 hours, if the user needed it for some reason. There's still a lot of damage that can be done there. We looked at a bunch of open source tools. We looked at using secondary accounts that the user could log in with and elevate if they needed to do something. We looked at UAC, which does some stuff, but not everything. So in the end, we had to roll our own solution, which is a combination of a few of these things. So limiting access, what we could use, do or when install applications in user space. Some applications require direct registry permissions or directory rights. We looked at what we could do there. Some users needed to manipulate services. And we looked at the authorization database on OSX for granting permission to certain things. So through our surveys, some of the things we found, people needed service control, specific application elevation requirements, registry requirements. Some users are building device drivers, interacting with the kernel. We've got systems and of various components. They're designing boards and things of that nature. So service, that's actually pretty easy. Microsoft, good. There's the SC command. You can run it. It tells you you run it against this particular service. It spits out this long string. You can run another SC command for set, and you can grant users rights to stop certain services. Normally at this point I would have a demo. I cut out the demos for time's sake. I did put a couple of screenshots in here though. So first you can see a user tries to restart the FTP service, deny. Log in as admin, run that string. User tries to start it again. Worked. Good. One problem taken care of. So now we get into applications. I get a ticket. This application doesn't work. All right. What do we do? Well, my job is critical. We got mission coming up. I don't have time for you to take my machine, debug the application, figure out what's going on. So just give me EP. So what we're finding out, this is the SA doesn't have time, can't get to the machine, so they just give EP, and the user runs forever with EP on that machine. And surprisingly enough, they never have time for the admin to come back and troubleshoot. So our solution for Windows, we did the tracking management. We did some stuff with WinSudo. We use a patching agent, scripting, and logging. I'm going to go through all of these. So this is what our workflow looks like. They log in, system name, ECN is just an asset number, what their operating system is, their justification, and for how long they need it. We only allow them to have it for a year, and then they have to renew it. So we started looking at scripting. What can we do here to ease the burden? We do have a centralized patching agent. I'm not going to name it out, but it's terrible. We were able to leverage it to our needs. So we wrote some PowerShell scripts that actually check the admin group for what users are in it, and then checks a text file we have with what users are supposed to have EP on what machines. If the mismatch from the admin group, and logs it for us. The script contains 3 text files. There's who's supposed to have it. There's a global group for the admin support teams to name all of the users, and then the script itself. Basic text format. username, machine name, and expiration date, which we don't actually, our workflow manages that. So we've made some progress since this. So it would be demo time. So here we have the demo user and the administrators group. The script is automatically run. Boom, demo user is gone. And it's logged that the user was removed from the group, because I like to track this stuff.
Do you flow those logs up into a SIM as well?
We
Secondary investigation occurs on?
we flow those up into Splunk.
And then someone acts on them. So why was this?
Yeah.
So what's your general estimation for a unit? What's your general response time when a user comes out and says, "Hey, I'm trying to run this. Looks like it needs this. Can I get it into the cribs?"
So the workflow, as I mentioned, has like 4 or 5 different steps. So if they fill it out, it depends on how quickly their management chain acts upon it.
Okay, so yeah, they have to sign off.
Yeah. So we have had cases where, something's been in orbit and they need to compile something. We can make that happen right away if something critical.
So I guess once it gets to you guys, how long would it take? Like if their management signs off at that point?
As soon as we approve it in the system, it's auto-provisioned in Active Directory, so it's right there. But sometimes we don't always get to them in a timely manner, because many of the
So I'm just curious, is our drive, when I ask for things, sometimes it seems like it takes seconds.
yeah.
Quit whining.
Yeah. Hey, I'm a needy user. I was going to say needy user over there.
Yeah.
But it just seems like this is really snappy. Like you're talking like, oh man, we got it. Like once it gets to us, like 2 days, 3 days.
We could have it done, the whole process done in a couple of hours, depending on if all the pieces are there to sign off on it.
Management really wants it. We've seen it go like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Approve.
Yeah. So, I'm going to speak ill of this guy and users in general, but we all know without users, we wouldn't have work. So we have the scripting. We've done some interesting things with WinSudo. So with WinSudo, we can grant EP to a single application. I've got a good developer on my team, so we've done some tweaks and done a custom build of the open source project. It does validate checksums. We haven't actually done checksums. So the modifications we did, we maintain a text file out on a web server. WinSudo actually, on its own, checks this web server every 24 hours in that text file, and it updates the permissions on that machine for the user, which it can also be. The user can just automatically check for updates if we made a change. So that'll grant or remove access as. So this is the basic format of the text file. What? Yeah, that guy does all the bad things. Basically the username, machine, and what command needs elevation. We also, because we're a federal agency, use smart cards. So we've actually implemented a smart card pass-through in WinSudo. So when a user tries to run it, that's what they get. They right-click on the executable, do run with sudo, put their password in, click OK, and then it launches UAC, which passes the user information through and approves the application or denies it.
I'll interject.
Please interject.
The reason that this is really super important for the feds is because we have a lot of agencies now are moving to PIV mandatory, and the third-party solutions that were out there that would just grant EP for specific applications bombed with PIV. They wouldn't read the card, they wouldn't pass through the PIN number. So then we had situations with these rogue boxes that the user would have elevated privileges, not because he needed to install something, but just because he needed to run, AutoCAD or something. And so this gave us the ability to kill all of those rogue boxes, EP on all those rogue boxes. So
Yeah, thanks for
use a PIV in your environment.
Thanks for that. And, to piggyback on that, the third-party solutions, some of them will pass through CAC, but not PIV. Some of them will pass through PIV, but not CAC. So it becomes a troubling game. So we are a large environment. I have all kinds of OSs. This does pass through also to Linux and OSX. Similar scenarios. Sudo, our patching agent, works sometimes. Lots of scripting. The authorization database on Mac, and we're still logging everything. So, any Mac people out here? Have you ever used the authorization database? Yeah, it's pretty nifty. It's a SQLite database. Basically anything in system preferences and a whole bunch of other stuff, which I've never even you can grant the users access to, one at a time or carte blanche. The demo I have here, we're going to unlock the energy preferences because he doesn't want his screensaver to come on at 5 minutes or whatever. So normally this is what it looks like. You go into system preferences, you get the little lock icon. You click it, they can't elevate. No. So we log in as admin. We run my script, which does a bunch of things that I need with like 20, 25 things there. Sorry, it doesn't really tell you which one is, other than yes or no. User goes into system preferences, and hey, it's just automatic, so they can change those settings. Well, especially for network settings, because most users need to update their network settings at some point in time. I don't know where my Linux slide went. Okay, we'll just similar sudo. So monitoring and tracking. This is a big part. We log everything. All of the tools I've talked about log, and we do track that. I like to visualize my logs so we can see what's going on. We track groups. We track changes to sudo. Like I said, I'm actually starting to play with the gray log, see what I can do there. I'm sure I can build a dash that'll report that. Here's my basic Splunk dashboard. It's not very pretty, but it works. The first one you can see is the account additions or removals to the admin group. So if a user gets EP in a box and they go into the admin group and they add their buddy, it's going to log that. So I can edit it, what account was added or removed. So that's handy. We've actually removed, because, hey, follow the process. The rest of my dashboard, the top box is, that's the user adds. The first one was scripting. Because this was not a box on the domain, my SID didn't come through, but that would be the demo account that did that. And the sudo elevation is the bottom one. I can see what command they ran and whether it was successful or not. So now we've done all of this, we've implemented it. The users are mad. That's an understatement. The users are throwing stuff as we pass by. This to my box. Yeah. Thousands of tickets. Every little possible thing you could think of, they'll put a ticket in for.
Add an extension to Firefox.
It's terrible. So we have to help our admins out because they're the ones that are out there day to day with the users. So what do? Automated patching. I mentioned our patching solution. It works, kinda. Centralized software installations. SCCM. Oh, that slide's a little wrong. But we did a self-install portal as well. So any approved applications we have, the user can go to our patching solution and say, I want to install this application. Okay. I'm okay with that. For the non stuff, let me back up to Windows. SCCM, I don't have the time to manage that anymore, so that's kind of fallen out. But WSUS, there are some things that let you push things other than Microsoft patches through WSUS. So we've leveraged that. So for the Macs, we're using Monkey, which is a centralized patch management for them, and Spacewalk and Satellite Server for the Linux machines. We do updates and applications and some configuration stuff. Other stuff, which we're not using, but patching solutions, big, right, PDQ deploy, stuff like that. Yeah, definitely. So, what we've learned, there are some positive things to come out of it. So, better overall security posture. We have had far fewer security incidents, not as many machines getting owned. I don't know numbers, but we do track that. If you have compliancy stuff, it can help you with data classification. And hey, imagine this, after you've been doing it a while, the culture starts to change. And it branches out into other areas. And now some of our software devs are actually starting to look at security when they're building stuff so that it runs without needing EP. But for every good thing, there's a bad thing. It's still a major culture change. We complaining all the time. They're cranky. Tickets, although it is starting to taper down. And of course the security team is because we do all of these bad things. So what's next? Possibly application whitelisting or blacklisting. Or your ideas. I'd love to talk to people if you have any other ideas on this. And to end, I thought I'd just put a few justifications up that we've gotten from users. You can read these. Yeah. I have 2 computers. I'm turning them in and getting 1 computer. I need EP. And you can't have them. Why? Yeah, exactly. So, funny one. The other type we get, they just put so much information in it that they hope we won't read it. Right. It's long. I do stuff.
And they're NASA scientists.
Yeah. I do stuff. I use Python, so I don't know why Python needs it. But I'm doing a lot of stuff, and you can see I'm important.
This would be a case where you would actually look at the tools the guys use and say, okay, I understand you're doing a lot of stuff, so let's run this thing and see if it works. Oh, that one works. Let's run this one. Oh, this one doesn't work, so we know that this process has to be elevated, and that's how you would work through this.
So sometimes this is where the admins hate us. We'll say, hey, install this piece of software on your box and see if it requires it. Or see if you can make it work.
So the Python, is it a mix between Linux? I assume if the environment's a mix between Windows and Linux too. You pretty much on Linux do everything without user privileges that involves normal R&D workflow.
Yeah.
Yeah, Python has virtual environments.
Yeah, exactly. No. The essays kind of do. We have a basic framework. You know, like any environment, I have some essays that are really sharp and some that are kind of dull. Ones know what to do. They like on a Windows box, they can go into the registry and they, you know, run the sysinternals tools and say, hey, it's accessing this key. Let's change the permissions on this key just to see if it works. And the other ones just give up and say, yeah, it needs it.
That's been our challenge. You have a different experience with troubleshooting than admin, and the admin members don't remember.
Yeah.
They get that reputation about.
Yeah. Sure. So with that, we're kind of at the end. We fielded some questions. Are there any other questions?
Just a quick question. So you got this custom Sudo app, right? It's going out to a website and going down a text file. Is it authenticating that web server within that application?
It is not.
All right. So technically, not that I would do this, but if I was working with you, I could like put in maybe something in my host file or whatever, or spooky mess, went into a different system to grab that text file.
Technically, you probably could. Yeah. Yeah, we're hoping the back end process is obscure enough that the end user is not figuring out what's going on.
Perfect. I love that answer.
Yeah.
So you do have a developer working for you.
Yes. Yes.
Is your stuff on GitHub?
It is not, but I actually thought about putting it up there on the plane ride here. So if there's interest, I'll put it up. Yeah, I think there's enough interest. I'll put it up later this week, probably.
I want to send it to our IT.
Okay. I'm happy to share everything we've done.
Tell them about NOLA.
Oh, I didn't want to pimp my con at your con. All right. So I also run a conference in New Orleans. It's called NOLACon. It's in May this year, the 20th to the 22nd. Please come down. We'd love to have you. Our CFP is closed. We've got a ton of great speakers coming. It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and it's in New Orleans in May. What could go wrong? There's lots of entertainment. We got a couple of local bands. We've got Dual Core, who's nerdcore pop, hip hop, part of our community. Does a lot of cool things. There's a CTF. There's two CTFs. There's a regular CTF and an OSINT CTF. Tools coming down with all their lockpick stuff. There will be booze if you're into that.
Are there trainings?
There is a ton of training. We've got 4-day trainings, 2-day trainings, 1-day training. This is a perfect opportunity to have your company send you down there.
Because where's it located?
Because it's in New Orleans in May.
But where in
New Orleans?
So it's hard to book places in New Orleans. So we're at the corner of Canal and Bourbon Street. So come on down to NOLACon. And if there's no other questions, thank you.